Have you ever worked really hard at something only to find that every time you touch it, it just doesn't go right? It just doesn't work. It just doesn't come out like you thought it did. And at the end of the day, after attempting it a couple times, you completely lose confidence in yourself and your abilities, and you think, why did I even start this in the first place? If you've ever thought that, stick around. Let's talk about it for a minute. I want to thank you all for joining me here at Yogi Cycle Service. I am Yogi, and I bring you everything motorcycle related and Yogi related. I would really like to thank you for joining us here today. If you're new to this channel, I ask you to check out some of my other videos. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. And if you like to see some of these videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you know when some more content is coming out that you can say, hey, I want to go watch that video. Appreciate you stopping by. For those of you who are returning subscribers, thank you for coming back and checking out this video also. And I hope maybe you can get something out of this. So let's talk about it. But first, I want to point out from my buddy Doyle, shout out to him and his channel, Blue Bike and Doyle. I am pulled over so I can use my hands to talk and I'm not driving. Because, as a crazy Russian hacker says,
safety is number one priority.
So we're pulled over here because I want to talk to you about this, and let me explain where this comes from and why this comes about. If you remember my video a couple months ago, we took a 2008 Ultra Classic. He had a leaking primary. We pulled off the primary. We found out more problems. We wound up pulling apart his transmission and putting it all back together. And we also rebuilt his starter along the way. We get it all put back together. It's all beautiful. Bike's running great. Bike's starting great. He takes off. He heads to the house. He gets to the house and he shoots me a message. He goes, Yogi, I'm still leaking a little bit of primary fluid. I'm like, oh, crap. Something didn't go back together right. Okay. About a week or so later, we bring the bike back. We look at it. Sure enough, still leaking fluid. So we pull off the entire primary again. We look and we see it looks like it's leaking out from where the starter goes back into the back of the inner primary. When I got the all-balls starter clutch that goes inside the starter and rebuild it, it came with 2 O-rings. So I took off the one O-ring that was on there and put on a new O-ring, and it goes on the outside of the starter, and as where that starter fits into the case, it seals the starter shaft area to the case so that fluids, when being splattered up there from the clutch, don't get by it and leak out. So we replaced the starter seal. Put the primary back on, the inner primary back on, all the chain, primary drive, put the outer cover back on, put the starter back in. We take off, we go for a ride, and I'll be darned if it's still not leaking. Okay, what the heck? So we get the bike back to the shop. A couple days later, I pull off his exhaust, I pull out the starter and look where I think it's leaking from, and it's dry. I look down at this time, it looks like it's coming around from the main seal. Well, it's got to be leaking from there. All right, the third time we're going to pull off this cover. So I pull off the cover, and by this point, I'm just frustrated. You know, we did all this work to get this bike running, and when it went back together, it went back together so nice. It went back, everything just fit together so well. Why can I not get this stupid bike to stop leaking? Why? Why can I not get it to stop leaking? So I pulled it all apart a third time. I just did that a couple days ago. And I looked at the back. Nope, starter's not leaking. No fresh drips or runs coming from there. Main shaft looks dry as well. The only thing I can think is that it was the front seal around the compensator that potentially could have been leaking, because on the side of the seal I could see a little black, you know, when that oil mixes with road grime, gritty, there was just a little tiny spot there. But man, it was steady dripping when we were riding together. So it looked like somebody stuck it and it was bleeding out. And I was really frustrated when I saw that. I just really frustrated, because here I've taken this whole thing apart now twice, really with the starter 3 times, and I can't get the darn thing to stop leaking. And you know, at that point in time, my confidence was like out the window. I'm like, why am I even doing Yogi Cycle Service? I can't get this primary to stop leaking. Why am I even doing this? You know, questioning all of my mechanical abilities of why can't this stop? And, you know, I told my customer, I'm like, I am so sorry. And I even, you know, because his bike was down, his is a 2008. I have the same bike. Mine's a 2014. I'm like, dude, just take my bike until I get yours fixed. So I gave him my bike to ride because I felt so bad. You know, I just felt like I was questioning everything. So this past weekend, I called my buddy Chuck. I'm like, dude, I need you to look over my shoulder, man. Make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. So he took the whole primary apart again for the third time. And like I said, on the front seal that seals the inner primary to the compensator, there was just a little bit of dirt on there. Just a tiny little bit. Like maybe the seal, just when the inner primary cover went on, like it shifted just a little bit. And there's two little plastic tabs that are supposed to hold it in place. When I looked at it, both of them were still intact. So I don't know how that inner primary just didn't sit right, but I think it just wasn't sitting right. So when we took everything off, that was the only spot where I saw any wetness on the cover, but it was really kind of hard to tell because when we pulled the cover off, there was still fluid in there. I wasn't sure if that was a fluid from when we pulled the cover or if that was fluid from the leak. It was really kind of hard to tell. So we cleaned everything off. I used a citrus-based cleaner, cleaned off the back of the inner primary. I cleaned all the seals, cleaned all the gaskets, cleaned everything, cleaned the surfaces that they mounted on, and put it back together just like I took it off. And then it was raining. So I took it out for a ride in the rain. Only went 5 or 6 miles because it was like 35 and raining. Came back home and it's dripping in the garage, but everything looked like drips from the rain, from water. Didn't look like any drips from any kind of primary fluid. So last night I took the bike back to the customer and wound up meeting him halfway to his house. We did a bike swap. I gave him his, he gave me mine. And when we met at McDonald's, I pulled in, parked, shut it off, put the kickstand down, leaned the bike. I was like, well, let's get off and see if it's leaking. Went around to the other side, not one drip. Stuck the phone with the camera on it underneath the bike, looked all around, saw no wet spots at all. Problem fixed. Primary solved. Please stay that way. I'm thinking if it didn't leak after, 40 minutes of riding, 30 minutes of riding last night to go meet him, and then him riding another 20 minutes, 30 minutes home from there, that it's probably fixed. I'm thinking if it's not leaking now, it's probably not going to be. And honestly, when Chuck and I did this repair, man, we really couldn't figure out where it was leaking. It kind of had us both stumped. We're like, oh well, let's clean all these surfaces off and put it back together. So long story short, the bike is fixed. My confidence is back. But man, at the time, that was a tough one, man. I was questioning everything. I was questioning why I'm fixing bikes. If I can't even get a primary to stop leaking, I was questioning everything. And why am I doing this? Why am I making videos? I was discouraged, man. It's disheartening. It's frustrating. But and when you run into those situations, you either throw the towel in and ask for help, or you just keep plugging away and just stop, collect yourself, go through it methodically, step by step, and make sure everything's clean, everything's wiped down, that you're putting it back together, that fitment is fitting right, and that it just makes sense. I guess maybe I was too much in a hurry before. I don't know. I don't know what it was. But all I know is the bike is fixed now, and finally my confidence is back up a little bit. But man, how frustrating that was. It was just so frustrating. Does that happen to you? If it does, just take your time. Take your time and make it happen. So thank you for joining me for my rant today. And just know that not all the time does it work out the way you hope it does. You just gotta pick yourself up by the bootstraps and keep on trucking. So thank you for joining Yogi Clan. I hope you have a wonderful day. Be safe, stay warm, God bless, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.